Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings to you all. I hope everybody is doing great, spectacular, phenomenal, all of that great stuff. It is Sunday evening here where I am in Cleveland. All right, Cleveland, Ohio. My name is Miss Sasha. For those of you who do not know who I am, this may be your first time joining. And I have been bringing back the live streaming of the read alouds. Reading aloud is something that is still underrated, still not being done as it should be. And how do I know this? Well, when I go into classrooms and I'm reading aloud, I ask the students, I say, I ask them, are you being read aloud to at home? And I'm talking about from our little babies, even, I'll ask even like fourth and fifth graders. And maybe about when you start getting into the upper grades, it's less and less of the kids being read aloud to, which, by the way, those are the times in which we still should be reading aloud to our kids. Um, I don't read aloud as much to my really to my youngest, who was 12. However, um, this kind of just started happening recently because last year I was reading one of the books, JD and the Great Barber Battle, the JD and the JD series written by Jay Dillard, and he was enjoying that. And my daughter, who is 14, and at the time she was, you know, 13 years old, about to be 14, I was reading a chapter a night to them, and they were feeling it. My daughter, who's like 14, about to be 15 now, she was like, okay, I ain't really trying to have it all like that anymore. But even when you have when you have your students in the class, you're a teacher and you have those students who are in upper grades, teachers still, you really can read aloud, have them read out loud, because reading aloud is one of the single most predictors of a child's reading success. Reading aloud actually helps prepare that child for public speaking. So now they are getting accustomed to being able to speak out loud. It's helping them with their articulation. It's helping them with their expressions, inflections, all of these different things that reading aloud does. So I would really highly encourage you all to bring that back into your families. Okay. Um, with that being said, that's what I'm about to do this evening. I hope that everybody, again, like I said, is doing great. I'm about to get on and get started now. So, this is the book that I'm going to be reading aloud to you all. All right. A Bad Case of Stripes, written by David Shannon. I've been reading this book to the kids when I go into the schools and I'm substitute teaching, and and I'll bring read alouds. And I tell you, this book right here is one of the favorites. All right, I actually love reading this book aloud because it has a lot of the writing allows you to be very expressive. I get to get the acting skills going and all of that good stuff. So yeah, let's go ahead and dig into this book. All right. Some of you are already familiar with this book. So let's dig in. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla always worried about what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror. Then she screamed, "Ah!" Her mother ran into the room and she screamed too. "Ah! Oh, my heavens, she cried. You're completely covered with stripes. This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. Well, do you feel all right? She asked. I feel fine, Camilla answered. But just look at me. You get back in bed this instant, her mother ordered. You're not going to school today. Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say. And she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. Most extraordinary, he exclaimed. Well, I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching? No, Camilla told him. I feel fine. Well then, Dr. Bumble said, turning to Mrs. Cream. I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me. And off he went. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal. But when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, let's see some purple polka dots. Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else shouted, checkerboard! And a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon, everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change channels on a TV. That night, Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream, he said. I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction. And I've been getting calls from the other parents. They're afraid those stripes may be contagious. Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart? He asked. Oh, thank you, sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans. But she had been laughed at enough for one day. Well, yes, I see. Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. I think I'd better bring in the specialists. We'll be right over. About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. This is Dr. Grop, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young. Then the specialists went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed, tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. Well, it's not the mumps, concluded Dr. Grop. Or the measles, said Dr. Sponge. Definitely not chickenpox, put in Dr. Cricket. Or sunburn, said Dr. Young. Try these, said the specialist. They each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. Take one of each before bed, said Dr. Grop. Then they filed out the front door, followed by Dr. Bumble. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant multicolored pill with her face on it. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called. But this time, instead of the specialists, he brought the experts. Dr. Gord and Mr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camila was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. "It might be a virus," he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camila. "Or possibly some form of bacteria," said Mr. Mellon. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. "Or it could be a fungus," added Dr. Gord. Instantly, Camila was covered with different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camila, then each other. "We need to go over these numbers again back at the lab," Dr. Gord explained. "We'll call you when we know something." But the experts, they didn't have a clue, much less a cure. By now, the TV news had found out about Camila. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, and even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added to poor Camila's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and a long furry tail, but nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camila. "Close your eyes," she said. "Breathe deeply and become one with your room." "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that," Camila groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth, her nose was a dresser, and two paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. "Ah! What are we gonna do?" cried Mrs. Cream. "It just keeps getting worse and worse." She began to sob. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock at the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. "Excuse me," she said brightly, "but I think I can help." She went into Camila's room and looked around. "My goodness," she said with a shake of her head. "What we have here is a bad case of stripes. Oh, one of the worst I've ever seen." She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. "Here," she said, "these might do the trick." "Are those magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh, my, no," replied the kind old woman. "There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans. And I'll bet you like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camila. Camila wanted a big heaping plateful of lima beans more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. Yuck, she said. No one likes lima beans, especially me. Oh dear, the old woman said sadly. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camila watched the old woman walk away. Oh, those beans would taste so good. And being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she'd been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. Wait! She cried. The truth is, I really love lima beans. I thought so, the old woman said with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camila's mouth. Mmm, mmm, said Camila. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camila, and everything was back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. She patted Camila on the head. Then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camila wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all of the lima beans she wanted, and she never, ever had even a touch of stripes again. The end. All right, you guys. Like I said, that's one of my favorite books to read aloud because I get a chance to really be expressive. And that's one of the things that I love to demonstrate. And that's why I love reading aloud because not only am I helping our young people, I'm also helping our adults. A lot of times, with reading aloud, people do not think that they can actually help to make those characters come to life, which, by the way, it helps to keep your little ones engaged in the read aloud experience because that's the thing. You want to make it a great experience. You want to make it pleasurable because that's the way that we're going to get our kids into reading more. All right. And I also wanted to bring up the fact with the book. Again, this is a great read alouds are great because it creates the conversations that we need to have with our young people. And as you know, from the beginning of the book, Camila wanted to fit in. And this is something that you could talk to your children about, reminding them about being themselves, asking them, what was it? Why was Camila feeling so insecure about herself? Why did she feel like that she couldn't just simply say in the beginning, well, yes, I love lima beans, right? Why? Because again, she wasn't feeling like her whole complete self was of value. So she was going through all of that, and all she had to do was simply just eat the lima beans. And side note, I don't know if you all caught the fact too with her name being Camilla. One of the things I talked to with the kids I was reading to, I said, "Have you all heard of a chameleon?" And some of the kids were like, yes. And I said, well, what is a chameleon? What does it do? And they were like, oh, it changes colors with it, whatever environment that it's around, right? Camouflage and blending in. I said, think about her name, Camila, chameleon. All right. Now, this is not something that I looked up to research, but just connecting the dots and this is something that happens, especially when you are reading a lot. you start thinking like, okay, well, I wonder why the author decided to name her that. And I'm pretty quite sure that that's probably the reason. Camila wanted to she wanted to fit in. She did not believe that her full self, her liking the lima beans because her friends didn't. She like, well, I want to be with them. Okay. So once again, that's just another conversation starter, another way to get those conversations going, especially around literacy. All right. So I hope you all enjoyed that story. And remember to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And as you all see the ticker below, for those of you who are looking on Facebook Live, I would love for you all to donate to our organization, ABC Read. ABC Read is a nonprofit 501c3 organization, and we have been dedicated to helping to develop and nurture a culture of literacy in our Black and underserved and underrepresented communities. Okay, we've given away over 6,000 books. We've had dynamic, awesome, dope reading events. Had guest speakers there, professional guest speakers there, coming to empower our community. And we make sure that we're giving healthy foods, healthy snacks to the community as well. So, if you would love to help us continue to grow, continue to give away these books, because our goal, inshallah, God willing, is to give 10,000 books by the end of the year. And oh, yes, we can do this. We can do it together. So if you guys are watching right now on Instagram, just simply go into the ABC Read, abc.read. That is my page on Instagram. And I have the link to click to the website, and you can just simply donate. You can look to see what we've done, or you can just simply go to Cash App, $ ABC Read, give whatever it is that you can. All right. Because we're on a mission, y'all. We're going to do this, but the only way this can happen is if we continue to do this together. Okay. Last but not least, as you all see behind me, that's one of our new designs on my website, readingisfreedom.store. Yes, it is for sale. And I have other designs as well. Reading is freedom. And, again, just promoting literacy. That's what Reading is Freedom is about. So please make sure that you go to the website and go ahead and grab you a shirt, a hoodie, a mug, get you a bag. You know what I'm saying? Get your purchase on. All right. I thank you all again. My name is Miss Sasha. And remember, please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. Reading is freedom. Peace.